Good evening, everybody. Welcome to It's All About Health, the television version. I'm Doug Miles, once again sitting in for Rochelle Herman, and a happy Halloween to you out there. She's with her kids tonight, trick-or-treating around town, so she asked me if I could sit in, and I said yes, because I got a chance to talk to a good friend of mine. He's been with us before, a few months back, if you saw the show, and he's been a good friend to us over at 1220 WIBQ. Gary Schuster, former newsman for CBS and for the Detroit News. And Gary, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Doug. It's been great.
I know you've been doing a lot of traveling recently.
A lot of traveling
around the world, and nothing new to you to do some traveling, particularly during the political season. That's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, this
tonight.
was a little different. I was overseas. I was in Athens and Cairo, Egypt, and Istanbul, and some other places, but not doing, not reporting, just sort of vacationing and looking around. But and I went up to the World Series to see my old Detroit Tiger team.
You told me, yeah.
Went up there without tickets.
Interesting story how you got in to see the game.
Went up without tickets, yeah, and found that Ticketmaster, Ticketmaster had not sold all of its tickets. They'd got an allotment but didn't sell them all, even though everybody said everything was sold out and scalpers only. And found a little box office that they were selling tickets that, Ticketmaster had and returned. So instead of paying scalpers fees of, $700, $800 a ticket, I got in for the face value, which was great. So I got to see the team play and see some old friends.
In Detroit.
Yeah,
got into.
Yeah, see some friends up in Detroit, and turned around and came back. So it was good. It's good I saw them then because they weren't going to play anymore.
So you lost? The team lost?
Yeah, they
think
lost.
That week off killed them.
I don't know. You say, some people say rust. You rust after you rest, but I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. Whatever it was, they weren't good, and they didn't deserve to win. So, as much as I hated to see them lose, they deserved to take the pipe.
Now, you were covering, not the last time, you had 84. Did you cover that team as well?
No, I didn't cover the 84 team. I was in Washington, but in 68 I covered the Tigers when they came back. They played St. Louis and won in 7 games in St. Louis. And I covered
3-1 in that series.
Yes, yeah. And I covered the return to Detroit where the fans were so, outrageously happy that they flooded the airport in Detroit to the point where they didn't want to land the plane because they just know they can control the crowd. So they landed them over at Willow Run Airport, which is an old place. It used to be a field and was used during the Second World War. They sort of dusted off the concrete and brought the plane in there instead. So there were only a few of us out there. Only a few of us knew that they were coming into Willow Run. So I got to see all the guys stumble literally off the plane coming back from St. Louis. Yeah, so it was sort of fun to see St. Louis, and then here you are 48 years later,
right?
Back in there again.
Of course, back then,
38 years later.
The great pitching matchups. You had Bob Gibson, you had
Lolich, you had Denny McLain.
Won 3 games, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely, won 3 games, right? Yeah. And you had Lolich, McLain, like you say, Gibson, and they had some of the guys. They had Willie Horton and Kaline throw out the first balls the first night of the game. And Sparky Anderson, the manager, in '84, one of the only, at that point, was the only manager who had won both in the National League and the American League a World Series title. Now La Russa has done it, now with St. Louis and with Oakland. So now you got two managers who won a World Series in both leagues.
And, some say La Russa probably should have done it earlier because he's had teams that have gotten
there. Yeah, he has.
Ironically, the team with the worst record ever. This is the year that they get all the way through. 83 wins this year.
Yeah, Derek Jeter from the Yankees was saying you just don't know. You got to be really good to get to the playoffs, but you don't have to be really good to win them. You can play. I mean, it's sort of what happens with a team that happens to get hot. I mean, you got to be hot all year to get there, but you only got to be hot for about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to win it all.
To win it all. It's like hockey.
Yeah.
You get in the playoffs, a hot goaltender.
Sure.
Going to take the Stanley Cup. But
so it's not that they don't deserve it. They played better than anybody else because they're standing at the end and nobody else is. But it was good. It was fun to watch and good to go back to Detroit. So
good to talk about a game of another sort. The political season, which we're right in the middle of, only 1 week from tonight will be election night, midterm elections, which is always interesting from our perspective because we get to cover it, and obviously very important from a aspect of changing the Congress. It's going to be, what, about a third of the Congress going to change?
Well, a third of the Senate could change.
Half the Congress
could change. And the Congress, the whole Congress is up for re-election every 2 years. So you have 435 members there who are running. And then of the 100 senators, every 2 years, a third of them go. So I think you have 33 this year who are up. But there are only a few races that are close in the Senate, but they are close enough where it could turn the tide. The Democrats need 6 seats to win it and to control it, and there's a chance that Missouri might flip, Ohio could flip, Pennsylvania, Santorum in Pennsylvania is probably gone, although he will tell you he's not, but the polls seem to indicate that, to Casey, whose dad was governor at one time of Pennsylvania. And you have a few other seats. Montana's touchy. Virginia is touchy with George Allen talking about sports. His dad was the former coach of the Redskins.
Brother of the GM of the Bucks.
Yeah, and so you have some very close races, meaningful races. It could turn the tide in the Senate, but the pros are saying that probably is not going to happen. The Republicans might end up keeping it by 2 seats, but in the House, much more dicey. The Democrats need 15 seats, and it looks as though there are that many out there, and maybe a few more that could make the difference, and could make it a Democratic House and a Republican Senate, which always in Washington means stalemate.
Right.
And so you basically turn Bush into a lame duck.
Early lame duck.
Early duck. Yep. And if the Democrats do control the House, what you're going to have is, I think, a number of investigations. They will go to special committees and look into all kinds of things that have happened. Why Dick Cheney won't give you the list of the people who visited him in his office from the oil industry. I mean, you're going to have all kinds of things.
Again from
absolutely
6 years ago.
You're going to have why they are tapping phones. I mean, everything that was brushed aside by the Republican-controlled House is now fair game if the Democrats win it. So if that's the case, Bush is going to make a rut going between the White House and the Hill, and his people will just up there answering questions. So.
We'll just take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about some of the big local races, obviously. Congress in Sarasota, Bradenton area. A big debate last night, the governor's debate, and some interesting comments today by John Kerry, which has caused quite a stir. We'll do that. Our guest is Gary Schuster. I'm Doug Miles. We'll be back right after these words. Don't go away. Welcome back. Doug Miles, and my guest tonight is Gary Schuster. We're talking about the political season and just keeping it local, which all politics eventually is local. The congressional election, which is very close between Buchanan and Jennings. Pretty tight if you look at the polls heading into the election in a week, which is a little surprising, I think, don't you?
I do.
Traditionally, it's been more Republican, although Democrats have made inroads the last couple of terms.
And I think this year is going to be a little tougher, even no matter where you are. Even if you're in a solid Republican district, it's still going to be tougher than it was 2 years ago. You have candidates out there who didn't have a contest 2 years ago, Republicans,
right,
who now are in really tough races just because of what's happened in their districts. Jennings and Buchanan. I don't know how that breaks, Doug. I really don't. Buchanan has a lot of money, pouring a lot of his own money into it. But in a lot of these races, the money isn't going to make any difference. It's going to be turnout, whether they can get the vote out, and how angry that electorate is. And even if you're not an incumbent, where this race, Harris left to run for the Senate,
right, so
you have this open house seat of hers. You say that was a Republican seat. If she'd have run for it, she'd have won again. I'm sure.
Oh, easily.
I think. But there was some, there's some question about what she did and how she behaved in Washington and things she did with lobbyists. But my guess is she'd have probably won that seat. But now that it's an open seat, you've had Laura Bush in here, you have the president in here. A friend of mine who works at the White House in the political office was just doing West Coast. They assigned him to Florida just because there are 4 races down here that they really aren't sure about. So as you say, those local races are big.